Yes, that is my topic for today, a big word, but they're getting bigger. Kim Kardashian, Gabby Hoffman, January Jones, and our late newcomer, Colleen Rooney, who is about to give birth shortly, they've got certain things in common. Money, fame, fortune, but also the hunger for more, something more exciting, something new, something that people will talk about, something people will publish. Either good or bad, but especially weird, then you secure your place in the paper. And this is what it is, the placenta. So what do? They think you should eat your placenta because it's good for you. And this all started a while ago with Tom Cruise that said he's going to eat Katie Holmes' placenta. And everybody thought it's because he's a Scientologist and that's why he's doing it, but they say it's got nothing to do with him, it's out of his own celebrity choice. So placentophagia is the act of mammals eating the placenta after birth. And this is very common amongst mammals. Most mammals do that. And they do it immediately after birth. And there are various reasons, and I think the most accepted one is to remove any evidence of birth, to keep predators at bay, so that they've got a reason to eat it. Humans, the first recording was done by Ober in 1979 of a human eating a placenta. After that, in the 70s, they started to increase. The hippies era, definitely increase in eating placenta, but then it plateaued. And then only now celebrities started eating placentas again, and it's been covered by the media. And what celebrities do, the rest do. So they just follow. So who are eating placentas? They are Caucasian women, well-educated, upper middle class, and they opt for home births a lot of times. What is interesting is that only 5% of them discuss this issue with their doctors. So they know, stay away and just do it at home. So what do these people have in common? Salander had a look at 189 women, and half of them, at least, had previous psychological or psychiatric problems like depression, postnatal disorders, baby blues, anxiety, all those, where 2/3 of them stated that they've actually self-diagnosed their condition and never sought help. So one can't generalize, but you already see a pattern of this type of person. Just to recap, just your anatomy, that's your uterus. Once the baby is born, there's umbilical cord, the placenta gets, the uterus starts to contract, the placenta gets loosened up and it's pushed out, and that is your afterbirth. Because there's no more function once the baby is out. So the anatomy, there's a fetal portion and a maternal portion. But the placenta is a very important organ with a lot of functions, and I've divided it into three: metabolic, transfer, and endocrine. Metabolic is to do with glycogen, cholesterol, fatty acids, and nutrients. And then transfer is to transfer oxygen, carbon dioxide, red blood cells, nutrients and hormones, antibodies, a lot of things so that you ensure baby safety. But it also protects the baby from infections, but sometimes there are infections that are very dangerous to the fetus that do cross, like your herpes viruses and your toxoplasmosis and so forth, syphilis and that. And then, of course, the endocrine function, because it produces hormones, progesterone and estrogen. So, women say they eat their placentas because of these reasons: postpartum depression, postpartum bleeding, lactation, bonding, nutrition, anemia, and to give an energy boost. And they say they do it because the placenta contains these hormones. It contains estrogen, oxytocin, and minerals, and ions, and cortisol. So it's quite easy for us as doctors to say, yeah, all right, they do contain it, but let's look at the facts. Does the placenta really contain these things? And yes, estrogen and progesterone, and there's the evidence that it's been done. Estrogen and progesterone, it has iron and it has oxytocin. So it should work. But that's not enough reason to believe that it's actually working. we've talked a lot about evidence-based medicine, and that is what we aim for before we can say the placenta is really good for you. Now, most evidence, as you can see from this, as you move up, the methodology becomes stronger, less biased. A lot of evidence, we've discussed this a lot of times, it's a hearsay or Facebook or social media. That's not even, it's lower than the bottom of case reports. So, but that's what most people believe. That's what they read, that's what they talk about. It helps for me, it helps for my neighbor. But that's not really evidence-based medicine. So you can't go according to that. So let's look at all the entities one by one. Postpartum depression. They believe it really helps for that. PPD is not a Mickey Mouse diagnosis. It is a severe illness which should be managed by psychiatrists, psychotherapists, and on medication. Placebos don't help. If you've really got PPD and you eat your placenta and you're cured, you haven't had PPD. It's as simple as that. But what about the estrogen and PPD? We know that low estrogen levels happen after birth. And the link between low estrogen and postpartum depression is not all clear. Because all women experience the low levels of estrogen, but not all of them suffer from PPD. And there's a graph showing you that just after birth, there's a massive drop in your progesterone and your estrogen. All right, so by eating your placenta, you will replenish that, and it should help. But if you look at both of these hormones, they both undergo extensive first pass effect once ingested orally. That means there's little to no bioavailability. That means it's orally ineffective. So all the hormones women taking the contraceptive pill or hormone replacement therapy, these hormones got to be modified. For instance, progesterone's got to be changed into an ester like medroxyprogesterone, or you've got to alkylate estrogens in order that you can drink it orally to be bioavailable. So your estrogen, progesterone doesn't get absorbed if you take it. So that doesn't hold water. If you look at lactation with oxytocin, breast milk is only adequate after 2, 3, 4 days. This is normal. If you eat your placenta or not, it's not going to be the reason for increasing your breast milk. The most important stimulus for breast milk is nipple stimulation. Once the baby starts to suck, oxytocin is being secreted, and that has got the effect. Other effects of apart from increasing breast milk is that it decreases your postpartum bleeding, and it's also responsible for bonding. These are all the reasons why they eat their placenta. But unfortunately, oxytocin undergoes rapid destruction in the GIT, so it's also not orally active, so it doesn't help. So studies, yes, there's one being done in 1954. 210 patients, they were fed freeze-dried placenta. 86 reported an increase in milk production. Now this is most probably purely physiological and normal. There were no control groups, because if they had one, they would have demonstrated also an increase in 86, because it happens to all women. But I mean, so that is very easily to quote. There's a study, but it's a useless study. Iron is even easier, because iron deficiency postpartum is common because of the extra demands from the fetus, bleeding during labor, and so on. So you do a full blood count, you can see the red blood cells are small, there are low ferritin levels, so you can diagnose iron deficiency anemia very easily. So people are eating placenta to replenish the iron. Now this is a good study, and that's almost the only study that's been done that's a proper study. It's a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled pilot study, 23 patients. They did HB transferrin, ferritin, no difference. So if you follow a normal diet postpartum or eat your placenta, there's absolute no difference. And that was done in 2016. So okay, maybe there's no evidence-based benefits, but at least it's a natural. So natural, so no harm done. Remember, the placenta is a filter, and it's not sterile. The primary function of the placenta is to protect the fetus from harmful substances, and if you look into a placenta, you'll find a lot of hazardous substances like heavy metals, selenium, cadmium, mercury, and lead. But that's not all. Also organisms. A newborn presents with a systemic infection at the emergency department. Streptococcal infection diagnosed and treated. Baby sent home, 5 days later back into the ICU, severely ill. Group B streptococcus, cultured from the placental product the mother was eating. This was June 2017. The Centers of Disease Control, CDC, issued a warning to all mothers not to eat placentas because of this. So, it's natural, but let's just look at other ideas. The epistemology. It's important because what we think we know tends to determine our choices and actions, preferences, etc., to support a particular cause and like. I'm just quoting, my family could always tell if I hadn't taken the placenta pills that day. Can you smell pathology? I felt almost immediate relief after my first smoothie. Previously, I was feeling dizzy from low iron and had no energy. After my energy was up, I felt back to normal and had no problems with the pressure after birth. I don't know. In 1963, EDMUND said, he asked the case, is justified true belief knowledge? There are situations in which one's belief may be justified and true, yet fail to count as knowledge. Just look at earache. If you suffer from earache, you go to the chemist, they give you drops, you instill it in the ear canal, and you roll up a cotton wool and you put it in. And after a couple of minutes, you feel much better. So now you go to medical school and you study everything about ear infection, and you realize that ear infection is in the middle ear. So you've got a tympanic membrane, the eardrum. The drops you put in can't go through, so it can't actually treat middle ear infection. So how's that possible? But still people say it helps. Now you think further, but the organisms in the middle ear produce fluid, gas, whatever, so it increases the volume in the middle ear. That means the eardrum starts to bulge. It bulges out, and it's extremely sensitive to pain, and that gives you the pain. So now all of a sudden it actually makes sense, but for other reasons, because it's not the drops, it's the cotton wool you put in that neutralizes and equalizes the pressure, so your pain is gone. So remedy, garlic for ear infection. Take a few garlic cloves, crush it, wrap it in crushed cloves and small cloth and put it in your ear canal. So what's helping, the garlic? No, just the physical. You can just put chewing gum or beachy in there. But that's what changes our thoughts. And this is a very big word and a very important word, I think, fallibilation. Now, I don't want to be Zuma, but listen carefully. The habit of critically reflecting on, and if necessary, revising and transforming one's habits or beliefs. It is the philosophical principle that we could be wrong about beliefs, expectations, or understanding. Now, this is a very important attribute for scientists, especially doctors. Whenever you diagnose, whenever people say this helps, that helps, even if you think it's a lot of rubbish, always keep a door open, because it might work for different reasons that you can't explain. Always query your diagnosis. Always be open for suggestions, because if not, then you're not a true scientist. Then you're not a true thinker, because as a lot of speakers said, science is not set in stone. It's not maths. You must always think lateral. So, and to give you an example of what we've just talked about, let's go back to the placental oxytocin. We know that oxytocin is well absorbed through mucous membranes. In fact, you can have an oxytocin spray that you can administer intranasally or in your mouth, and it gets absorbed within seconds. And if you look at the literature, there are midwives that advise mothers after birth to cut a small raw piece of placenta and keep it in the cheek. Now that makes sense all of a sudden, because if there's enough oxytocin, then it will get absorbed. So this is an easy study to do. You take a placenta, you cut it, you determine the amount of oxytocin per gram. You get a group of women, you give them placentas after birth. You get a group, you give them nothing. And another group, you give them, they think it's placenta, but it's a placebo. You measure bleeding, contraction, whatever you want to measure, and you compare. So all of a sudden, there's something to work on, to say, yeah, okay, maybe there is, even though we think placenta eating is nothing, but maybe there's some truth here. We have to investigate it, and it is reasonable. So if you're still eating, why are you still eating? The Kardashians have enough money to get the best advice. They've got enough money to get the most expensive gynecologist and nutritionist. They've paid a fortune for that, and they say, eat it. So why would I not? I can't pay for those doctors, I just believe them. My self-esteem is already low. This will make me part of the celebrity fraternity. It's a bit of a reflected glory. I'm a nobody, but now all of a sudden I'm very close to Kim, you know. Even though I continue taking my Prozac, it's my Placentophagia that saved me from depression. And that's common. I've got a sore knee, and I take a Voltaren for it, and then later, and after that I go to the homeopath for my headache, and he gives me a drop, and now my headache's gone. The drops must be working. We forget about the Voltaren. So, keep those things in mind. And then a very important point. I have a feministic view and will take control of my own body, as I have done regarding breastfeeding. Ellen Gleck said in Newsweek 2015, the real reason I ate it was to prove that I am part of that new tribe of women who don't fear their bodies. For many years, decades, men dominated the scene. Women weren't even doctors. Men told them how to breastfeed, told them everything about their vaginas, how to deliver babies, what they must eat, not eat. This is the first time women can actually take control and say, listen, we know more now. We can also do. So I don't think one must underestimate that important fact. Now, I actually brought you a placenta. This is, you can eat it raw. There is fresh raw placenta. Bon appetit. So, if you want to take it down, you're welcome. Or put it in your cheek, at least that we work. That's hardcore. You can cook it. Robin Cook has got a 25 placenta recipes. Easy and delicious recipes for cooking with placenta. Lasagna, bolognese, stroganoff. But I think Kim and all the celebrities went for this one, capsules. They cook, they dry, they mince, and they encapsulate it. My gynae, my encapsulator. Up to now, the most convincing support for mothers to consume their placentas come from the encapsulators. Why? Money. Always money. There are more than 1,000 companies at present. Home service is available, and they come and they cook and prepare your placenta and put it in capsules. Now it's about 3,000 to 4,000 rand. It includes your capsules, a tea, a tincture. This is Happy Bellies, by the way. And $25 for a placenta print if you like. Columbus encapsulators, they've got a nice take on it because they also give you an umbilical cord keepsake. While the placenta lady's got a berry flavored capsule and an energetic remedy to use during acute stress or transition. However, I don't know how somebody looks that's transitioning. Okay, in summary. Currently no evidence that placentophagia does any good. Be careful for false claims driven by financial gain. The word natural is often synonymous with I am going to take you for a ride. Natural doesn't mean safe. Another hurdle for doctors to investigate and to convince. It doesn't matter what future research concludes, there will always be people believing in this practice. Wrong is wrong, even if everyone is doing it. Right is right, even if no one is doing it. Thank you.